Dr. Richard Chandler. There you go.
My mom would say Robert, but that's okay.
Robert. Oh,
You
I
called him
said Richard, didn't I?
You did.
Oh my goodness. Dr. Robert Chandler.
And you're wearing your name tag again, which I keep taking off you. It's like some weird glitch in the matrix.
I don't know. Yeah.
Actually, I get Raymond more often than Richard, but that's only if you're old enough to remember the old actor Raymond Chandler from back in the day. But you two look much too young to remember the actor Raymond Chandler. So you have a Google assignment.
Thank you.
You have a Google assignment.
My mom would thank you even with that
Okay.
one.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
So welcome to DRJ. Welcome to Phoenix.
Thank you.
I know you're presenting here.
So I'm actually doing a workshop. I will be doing a workshop on improving communication effectiveness. And so my background is really in social science and processes human performance. I began my career as a communication professor, focusing on organizational communication, and that shifted into non-routine communication. And so I think 1991, I was invited to speak at DRJ to talk about crisis comm and communication during emergencies. And my research fit pretty nicely, actually, and it kind of fit in. And at that time, DRJ was, I would say, 92.7119% IT. They focused on technology, computers, software. It's still a heavy part of disaster recovery, but I think it was kind of a nice kismet, if I can use a little Yiddish word. It was a very nice kismet in that I think the first time they met a social scientist who researched the human performance parts of it, or I guess what we used to call it soft skills. I don't believe I don't like that word, but we used to talk about it. And so I was invited back, and I was a keynote speaker here for 20 years. Really until the pandemic. And I am a pandemic DRJ casualty. I did not come back to the face-to-face conference. And so this year I have ventured back out. I've put my head above the ground like a little groundhog and seen my shadow, and I'm back. And so they asked me if I would do a workshop in communication, again, focusing on what you might call soft skills in a place that, people think about communication as radios and computer plug-in switchboards. And for me, it has a lot to do with the human factors. And so a lot of my research is in what happens to people during critical events. So a disaster, a emergency, a crisis. And I've been very privileged to have a few of the only peer-reviewed studies that have documented some of those. And so it's a lot of fun. I've been, I guess my day job for most of that time was I was a university professor. I taught graduate students, master's level students in these skills, and I do love that. Another one of my pandemic things was higher education is just, it's too much confusion and work. And so what I have done is basically come out and focus full time on being an executive coach, being a trainer, developing curriculum, teaching people skills for human performance, for systems. And I'm actually here at DRJ this year. I have an exhibit booth. I don't have any product to sell other than me, which is a little embarrassing. But if anybody's here, you want to stop by booth 109, I'll be happy to tell stories. That is one thing that old university professors can do, is that we can entertain students of all ages as long as we need to.
You tell funny stories, because I've seen you speak before, and I know you have funny stories.
Yeah, my kids would say they're dad jokes, and they would roll their eyes at that. And my grad students actually like them. It's only my personal friends that really kind of like, that's not very funny.
So Alex, earlier we had talked about what booth might have the best conference swag. We hadn't considered dad jokes as conference swag. I think that might be a leader right now for best conference swag.
Yeah, because weren't doing much swag. I wish I could say we had lots of great Chotskys. We have candy, but that was all I could think of, is lots of candy.
I think just dad jokes.
Candy and business cards. I give out business cards. So no, the best dad joke I got is that when I started this new company last year, as an absolute academic nerd, people said, what are you going to name it? You have to name something catchy. You have to name something meaningful and deep. And they said rock, paper, scissors wasn't going to work. And so I chose Empiria. And my wife, of course, immediately said, no one on planet Earth is going to know what Empiria means. And I said, oh, no, I have a PhD. Everyone will know. And yes, and so, the classic Greeks, they had like 3 types of knowledge. And so my mini lecture would be, they had doxia, which is something you believe. orthodoxia, which means something you believe that everyone else believes that's right, or episteme, something that is absolutely for certain something you know. And the Greeks did that with everything. They did that with expertise. And so the lowest level is basically you were trained to do something. That's the lowest level for the Greeks. The next level up is you know enough to train someone else how to do something. But the ultimate level for ancient Greece among the philosophers was empyreia, which is the type of expertise that comes from the fact that you've demonstrated that it works. It's proven, it's empirical. We would say do research studies on it today. So like the ancient Greeks would say, if you need a physician, choose one who has empyreia. His patients don't die when he treats them. They live and they thrive. Or if you need whatever, a boat builder, you want to get the guy whose boats don't sink. And so when I was thinking of what would I name a group of experts who basically are there to advise businesses, managers, executives, teams, and help them in skills regarding human performance, processes, decision-making, empyreia. And so, you know, as a nerdy PhD, it makes perfect sense to me, even if I have to spell it for people looking for me on the web.
That's fantastic. That's the longest slogan I've ever heard, but I love it. So talk to us a little bit about, you mentioned you started your own business. What was, when you were evaluating the risk and reward of that, what led you to start your own business?
So I think it was, I've been a professor and I have never really done the corporate thing working for a big corporate owner, but I've worked for universities, and in some ways, I hate to say they're worse than anything else, but they have their own travails. And especially these days with the changing demographics, with enrollment trends, with different economic variables and budgets, and not to mention the politics, which I won't get into in your cast. So I don't want to upset everybody. But yeah, universities have become kind of the big target painted on them about what are you teaching and why did you teach that in the class?
Yes.
And it just gets a little exhausting. And so the idea of kind of doing something that I love, but just kind of doing it when and where I want to do it was really motivating. And in many respects, I just finished an executive coaching contract. In many extent, I'm still teaching, and it's still rewarding to be teaching, and I'm still doing research. So that part of it, I just don't have to go through another tenure review. I went through tenure review, finished all that, got promoted, was the full professor thing, and I've been there, done that. But right now, it's just the love and joy of doing it. The risk you mentioned, this whole conference is about risk, but I think for me, it was the idea that it's something I love doing, and if I can be partially successful. My wife owns her own travel advising business, for example. She has a bespoke boutique kind of home-based travel advisory. And basically I'm learning from her a little bit about some of the mechanics of it. But yeah, so it was kind of this classic, you've been doing this for many years, hanging out your own shingle. If you're brave enough and smart enough, you should be able to do it. And I think just the reaction here, I've met many people that for the first time have learned that I'm doing this. It's really very encouraging. First of all, I have to say, I think people are just being nice. I've seen old friends and people I haven't seen since before the pandemic, and they're all welcoming me back. They're so nice. They hear what I'm doing. And the most common refrain I've got is, well, here's what we're doing. And it just occurred to us what you're doing complements what we're doing. You're not a competitor with us, actually. And so I've left with a big pocket full of business cards and note to follow up with people to see if it's not there, because I don't sell software. I don't sell apps and tools like you see around this room here. I don't even offer to do business impact analysis or risk assessment or cybersecurity reviews. That's not what I do, but I do want to train people in how they think. Let me tell you something about disasters. Having a plan is critically important. Having the right tools and supplies, no doubt about it. I would never tell you not to do that. But really, the research indicates that it's not the lack of a plan or the lack of knowing somebody's in charge. It's never the first crisis that creates the most damage. It's the really, and can I use a word like stupid on here? It's
absolutely.
Sure. I mean, I don't want to go too far and push any boundaries, but
no, let's
maybe I should just say dumb.
No.
It's the dumb decisions people make after the crisis begins. We got the report from our athletic coach that maybe he was in the shower with a 12-year-old, and you're like, well, we probably should not talk to anyone about this and look the other way. Or we hear a report that we're going to have a major storm coming. Should we? Or we know the fire is coming. We have an emergency notification system, but most people think it's for tsunamis. So let's not warn anybody because we don't want them to run towards the fire. Now, I'm really not
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically,
right?
I'm not suggesting.
We're not talking about Maui here, of course not.
If we're here in the American Southwest, and I always think of the great case study of the guy that was faced the alarm bells in the main power grid switching station here. And Google it if you're curious. But by the way, when you shut it all down, it all shuts down. 5 states worth of power grid. It's often not the initial thing. And so one of the things I've done with MBA students all these years is basically teach things like decision making. So for example, I had an article published in a peer-reviewed journal this past year, which basically argues that the way we've been teaching crisis decision-making and the models we've used lead to some of the inevitable breakdowns, the very process itself. And so one of the things I'm asked to talk about a lot is this new vision for it. A lot of my executive coaching are to sit down with executives. And by the way, let me just share with you. I'm pretty humble, and I've had graduate students, and I've been married, and I've had kids. So the first person to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about won't shock me. I've had a long line of people ahead of you. But I have found working with senior managers and executives, most of them are very smart people, and they've been very successful, and they got to positions of authority, and God knows they make more money than I did as a professor. So, I mean, I can't really say, oh, I'm smarter than you. But what I found is that sometimes that itself sets them up for some of the vulnerabilities, because they've led a charmed life. Their strategy for what they've done in the past has always worked. This one's going to keep working. Yeah, I think that in some ways, and getting them to question those assumptions. So I have several kind of models, and I enjoy teaching it. So for example, tomorrow at this conference, I will be doing a workshop on communicating more effectively. And it's going to go beyond the typical, use information, be clear. I mean, there's so much of this kind of lower level stuff. And we're going to get into the psychology of it. We're going to get into some of the invisible things that make us misunderstand each other, that the things that we do. One of the things my graduate students did when I still had graduate students was we looked at 1,100 post-disaster after-action reviews. And we content and analyzed them to see what's the most common thing that went wrong, which we thought would be useful if they said, we didn't have a plan. The electricity went off. If we could identify what was the real reason that this thing went to, another word I won't use on your cast here.
Went to pot?
Yeah, went to pot.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm trying to be nice here. I'm a nice guy. I'm friendly. I'm kid friendly. I'm grandkid friendly. Anybody want to guess what was the number one, by a statistically significant measure, the number one reason that crises became worse and got bad? Listed in after action reviews, not me imposing on it. They were listed by the people who lived through it, and they got back together and said what went wrong, what went right.
Decisions, only because you mentioned earlier decision management.
I would love it to be that, because that's where my next book is, but nope, that's not the number one mentioned thing. The number one mentioned word is actually communication. I didn't hear, I didn't know, I wasn't on the same page, I misunderstood. Last time you didn't want that done, I guess I wasn't listening. We went through and then did a deep dive. In fact, tomorrow in the workshop, you guys should come join us. We're going to go through the top 12 communication breakdowns for the reason disasters get out of hand and can't get resolved and can't get managed. And I'm going to give you the 9 things that the field itself has said, if only we did these 9 things better, we wouldn't have had the same mess we did. We wouldn't have had to declare bankruptcy. We wouldn't be going to prison next month. These things would not be as happening as much. And it really is the kind of thinking about it. But yeah, working with people. One of my early books was on ethical misconduct disasters, which I find fascinating. And so I got a chance to work with some of the ex-Enron executives, which is a whole nother podcast we need to do someday on talking to them. But none of them, first of all, thought, one, that they were doing anything that would lead to what ended up happening. And they all thought of themselves as very ethical people. It's just the most bizarre thing. They all saw themselves as ethical people. They were just pushing the boundaries of business practices. They were innovative. They were cutting edge, coming up with creative ways. And I think most people see themselves as good decision makers. I think they see themselves as good managers. And then when they wake up and they're reading the newspaper and they're reading the body counts and the financial disruption and the clamor, or I live in Nashville. One of the things I got to study recently are social media firestorms that occur when you say something really dumb on your Twitter account. And I have a lot of empathy for that, because I say dumb things all the time. But it is something that kind of spirals out of control. Most people see themselves as a good guy, nice person, I'm ethical, this or that, and then they find themselves in it. And so communication is certainly the number one mention thing to be addressed. We're going to do that in the workshop tomorrow, but I'll go back to decision making. I think that's somewhere close to it, that it's even people with good plans and resources make some really dumb decisions.
And so for those in our audience who are here at DRJ, what time is your workshop tomorrow?
So the workshop tomorrow is Tuesday here at the conference on the 12th, and it's 1 to 3 o'clock. It's it's on the schedule. It's in the big board in the hallway. I'm trying to think of the room number, but I'm not sure I'll remember it. And yeah, come join us and put up with me. One of the things I will be introducing is I have a brand new assessment tool. It's a paper pencil assessment tool for communication. I'm gathering some data and feedback right now to determine its reliability and validity measures, and I hope to get some of the scaling verified, but I will be using it tomorrow for the very first time. I have a copy at my booth if you want to know what I'm talking about, but it's a 32-item self-assessment, and what we're going to do in the workshop at the end is I'm going to distribute it to the participants. I'm going to let them fill it out. There's a scoring matrix on it. You guys have all probably you probably take them online now, but I'm still an old paper and pencil guy. And once we get them scored, it'll give people an insight to both their strengths and weaknesses on the variables that were identified in it. And I'm actually I'll give you a little bit of advance notice. I'm going to suggest that they take it back and do a 360 with the same instrument, because how they rate themselves will be very interesting to compare it with how their coworkers, their subordinates, and their supervisors rate them on those same communication traits. And worst case scenario, one of the things I've been doing recently is I've been invited in to help people not only do assessments like this with their teams, with leaders. I've worked a lot. I've worked with teams. Teams are no problem for me, but I've worked with managers. I've worked with boards, senior executive group. And it's really amazing to do it, because one of the things we do is once we know your strengths and weaknesses, we don't just scold you. We actually talk about, so how can you improve? How do you set an improvement plan? And then of course, for me, conveniently, I'm able to deliver training. So this is what I teach. And so we talk about it, we go through it. And maybe this answers your very first question too. One of the reasons I was attracted to doing this kind of business is it really flows, getting what I do out to value to people. They don't have to enroll in an MBA course. Although there's nothing wrong with that. I will be happy to give you a pitch why you should take some graduate level courses, and you need to get your MBA right away, or at least a master's in communication and human psychology. But I do think that's one of the things that's beneficial. I do feel like it. And today, on the anniversary of 9/11, and I posted all my stuff on social media this morning. But speaking of which, on the actual 9/11 event date, there was a DRJ conference that began less than 5 days after that. It was started, I think, on September 15th or 16th. And we just got airline flights back, and there was only about 10, 12, 15% of us that got to that DRJ conference that year. And we spent all of our time sitting in the hallway, mostly talking about how did this happen and what can we do to get people ready. And that was one of my books came out of that conference.
Very
Wow,
interesting.
interesting.
So for our audience who would like to learn more about you or your organization, what's the best way for them to?
Well, the best way is probably to either call or email me. We have a website. I think it's up right now. I'm not really sure. This is a new enterprise for me. But Emperia, E-M-P-E-R-I-R-I-A, Emperia, it's Greek. You can basically email me at bob@emperia.com. We should have the emperia.com website up. I've been giving my personal cell phone number out. In fact, that's what you'll find on my business card. Call me. I may think you're a scammer, and so if I'm mean to you, I'm sorry, but I don't want to route it to our business number. Just call me. My personal cell phone number is 310-804-9556. If you've been around anything, a lot of my contact stuff's floating around. I know that I'm long-term here at DRJ and many of the other conferences, and a lot of the vendors in this room have over the years. I have actually done projects for them. I've designed message maps for that one over there. I did a series of work in terms of models for what you do for emergency notification message. My work is used by FEMA. My Marks of a Leader study is used by them on what a good leadership is. And so it floats around, but please feel free to contact me. Send me an email, bob@emperia.com. Call me at that number. And if I can make sure my website's up, you can go to emperia.com.
Or they can find you on LinkedIn like I did.
No,
to
and I
bring you
am on.
here.
I'm on
So there you
LinkedIn,
go.
and so I have to apologize to Alex because he sent me a note and I overlooked it. So I apologize for that. So my bad. So
That's
That's
okay.
all
I may
right.
do that to you too. So that's all I'm saying is that I have to claim my senioritis every now and then. But
That's okay. Dr. Chandler, thank you for
hey,
stopping
thank you
by.
guys. I
Thanks for
appreciated
stopping
this.
by.
And never ask an old professor to come by and talk because we're not wallflowers. I wish I wonder what would happen if I ever just sat somewhere. I don't know. Yes. No, I don't. How would that? I don't even know how that would play out. So yeah, that's yeah, dad jokes. That's where we started this
Yes,
whole
we
That's
conversation.
started
where we
with dad
started.
jokes.
We
This
started with
morning.
dad jokes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
all right, guys. Well, thank you very
All
much.
right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
I'm
Thank
going to
you.
take off. Bye now.
Okay. Have a great day. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay. Oh,
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 we're a little
there we
blurry.
go.
I don't
We
know if
went
that's
blurry.
me or the camera.
probably the camera. It moved.
We have you want to come up? We've got 5 minutes. All
Oh,
right.
we-
We can set her back in the chair and pretend like it's a live thing.
Once we go off in 5 minutes and we can do that. So
apparently there's a plan going on I know nothing about. So-
I'm going to keep it a mystery.
Okay.
Now, one of our guests wanted to do a photo. We have our first photo op.
A
which
photo.
I
op.
don't even know what's happening in this world. One
Oh
of
my
our
goodness.
guests had wanted to get their picture taken with us while they were a guest, and their photographer didn't show up.
Oh,
So they're asking once we go off the air in 5 minutes if we can stage a photo op, which I'm beyond excited to do. Just so I can call my kids today and say that someone wanted to do a photo op with Alex and I, and they can call me alive.
Dad, that's so uncool.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we only have a few minutes left anyway, so that'll be okay.
We do. We do. We have 1 hour left
We do. Yes.
today. I hope. No, I'm just kidding. 1 hour left. It goes by, and we're doing better. If you're with us in the third hour, one, thank you, but two, we have questions. But the first time Alex and I did this, we thought what we had were 10 hours of content, and I think we blew through it in 90 minutes.
Yeah, but we did it again, and we still had pages and pages of stuff we never
Yes.
talked about.
So we are doing better with that. Getting towards the end of day one is very exciting.
We'll
Yeah.
Have to talk. Do a lot of listening tonight because we need to save our voices for tomorrow as well.
Yes. I'm
Yeah,
just
same
making
thing.
sure one of our next segment guest is here. Alex,
But did it happen again?
it did. So
Oh, my goodness.
why don't
happened
let's
again?
have you on now. And then I'm gonna no, you're not. You're on time. You're actually I'm gonna beat Alex when we go off air.
For some reason, all the calendar invites came into different time zones.
Yeah. Would
Even though-
would you be free at 3? Are you free in 15 minutes? No, it's it's our mistake.
Yeah, it's my mistake.
Just in 10 minutes. All right.
Okay.
All right. So Alex, we need to double check all our invites for tomorrow. Because so this says 2:30, but we've
Yeah.
got 3:30 on the schedule.
Yeah.
So we've got some homework to do tonight. I was wondering, Micah, there's all these people lurking around. Okay.
We're popular.
We are popular.
I'll just take it as we're popular. That's
I-
funny. Apparently, Phoenix is, even though I clicked the mountain time zone, it still came up wrong.
There is mountain time and then there is Arizona mountain time, which are two
And-
different things,
And I got a feeling that
which is Alex is finding painfully aware of.
yes. So I have to take blame for all of those errors, unfortunately.
We are adding 20,001 incidents a day, according to Ann Pickering at Unsolved
Yeah.
occur. And we are 17% of them today.
See, we really are on that 20,000 list. At least I am. So what do you think? Should we take our break now? Might as
Yeah,
well.
let's wrap up now. So as you can tell, this hour was brought to you by Fox Glide. The
Yep.
owner of Fox Glide is actually standing right
Yeah,
off
he's
camera.
off camera over there.
So he's going to watch me do this read. And if I screw it up, I get to hear immediately feedback, which is fantastic.
The pressure's on.
But so I will try to be professional now. So this hour was brought to you by Fox Glide. Scottish-based Fox Glide is a dedicated custom sportswear brand, creating a truly unique look to your team's uniform. Selling in over 20 countries, Fox Glide specializes in the sport of curling, but also works in multiple other sports such as cycling and lawn bowling. Using the highest quality of sourced Italian fabrics, their sportswear will make you look great and feel great when you're participating in your favorite sport. My favorite sport in our Fox Glide leisure wear has been wearing them around the house. I don't know if that's a sport, but any excuse I have to wear our Fox Glide shirt, I do. That's not even a plug. Ask my family. I wear this shirt way too much.
I've worn mine around the house too, but the only people that see that is my dog. So, he's probably telling me, Daddy, it's time to change that, but I do wear it. And of course, even though they're off camera, we do enjoy them. So even if they can't hear us, we love these things.
We do love these
shirts. We do them.
All right.
So thanks, everyone. We will be back in about 10-15 minutes for our final hour.
If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.